Welcome everyone. I'm NeFesha Yisr'ael. I'm the Director of Programs here at CA for the Arts, and we're excited to continue our Joy Action Power series for CA for the Arts Arts and Culture Summit. We're here spotlighting leaders and partners and the creatives shaping our Arts and Culture Summit in April 2026. Today's conversation is with Marco Pinter, founder of MindClay, a wellness and creativity web app centered on reflection, mental health, and creative care. CA for the Arts and MindClay have worked together over the past year to imagine new possibilities for arts and health in the virtual space. And it has been a pleasure to hear about the new ideas the MindClay team has sparked.
Hello, if y'all don't know me, I'm Jennica, Organizational Advancement Manager. These conversations are about the people, values, questions, and lived experiences shaping the summit. To start, Marco, can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your work, what drove you to create MindClay, and your partnership with California for the Arts?
Absolutely. Thanks, NeFesha. Thanks, Jennica. I, first of all, I'm an artist like many of you, and I'm an interactive media artist. I went through the grad program in media arts and technology at UC Santa Barbara. And so that's been kind of part of my career. It's been one parallel career. The other is I've been in digital health for over 20 years. There was a company here in Santa Barbara, In Touch Health, I was early with, and then we got acquired by Teladoc, which owns BetterHelp in 2020. Probably many of you have that as part of your benefits. And so I had these two parallel careers that weren't really crossing. Um, but I was starting to work with the mental health group at Teladoc. And meanwhile, it's COVID and mental health is becoming more and more of an issue. I was seeing things that I thought could be done better for self-guided mental wellness. Meanwhile, my mom passed away, leaving three psychology clinics without an exit plan. And so I was thrown into sort of managing that briefly, and that was in rural central Pennsylvania. And everything suddenly kind of coalesced that therapeutic creative arts was really what we need. And so I left and I founded MindClay 3 years ago. And that's what we've been doing. And I was really glad to meet your group and start to offer MindClay to your membership and talk about different ways we can work together.
All right, thanks so much for sharing, Marco. For folks who are new to MindClay, how does the app work and what kinds of practices or experiences are available on the platform?
MindClay is a web app, which means it'll run on any browser, on any device, but it's also it is a web app, so that means on a mobile device you can optionally install it on your home screen. And what I used to do, at least in describing it as an analogy, was imagine calmer headspace, but instead of meditation, it's therapeutic art, music, movement, and writing. So there are a lot of mindfulness-based activities and also addressing anxiety, depression, cognitive reframing, things called benefit finding. And I'll give a couple examples. One of my favorites is the Zen board, which actually has a very powerful impact, more than we expected. You're invited to draw on your device something that's active for you right now. Maybe you're feeling anxious about, a little dysregulated. You can kind of sketch that or write a word and then sit with it, and you watch it slowly fade away as if you kind of painted it in water, and it fades in different spots. And as you're sitting with it, it's addressing this idea of impermanence, but also there's something like cognitive that happens that I can't explain in watching it go away that really helps re-regulate. So that's the Zen board. And then another new favorite of mine out of the 37 activities is the Taoist farmer activity. And I'm going to take a minute because I can do this very quickly now, to tell you the story of the old fable of the Taoist farmer, if you don't know it. And it's an ancient story. And so once upon a time, there was a farmer, and one day his horse ran away. And his friends said, "Oh, how unfortunate for you." And he said, "Perhaps." And then the next day, the horse returned with three wild horses it had found in the wild. And people said, "Oh, how wonderful for you that you now have four horses." And he said, "Perhaps." And a few days later, his son was training one of the new Broncos and was thrown off and broke his leg. And the villagers said, how sad for you, how unfortunate." And he said, "Perhaps." And the next day, the army came to town, recruiting all the young men to go off to war, but they couldn't take his son. And people said, "How lucky for you." And he said, "Perhaps." And that's the end of the story. And it's called benefit finding. And so we have two activities in MindClay now that use AI on the back end, where you can say something bad that you think that happened to you, and then the AI spins that, well, but then this happened. You can go back and forth, or the AI comes up with something seemingly negative that happened, and now it's your challenge to see, well, wait, what might come out of that? So, yes, so those are the kind of activities in MindClay and a lot more.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. That's one that'll stay with me, and I'm going to try to remember it to share with other people. So you talked about being an artist at the top, and so we're curious to know how your creative journey or your wellness journey helped shape this app, or even bringing that story to life, a story that has made meaning, had meaning in your life. What are those contributions of your experiences to shaping MindClay?
So I mentioned that I did the grad program at UC Santa Barbara, Media Arts and Technology, and my work is very kind of large scale. You interact with the movement of your body and you see visuals that represent that and kind of bring out different kinds of movement depending on which piece it is. It kind of evokes different movement in the public. And I also, so I was starting to see unexpectedly the impact that had on some people. There's a favorite piece of mine, Fluid Connections, that you see your silhouette, but then your arms and head grow extensions that kind of float into space. And a lot of people, it turns out, haven't put their arms over their shoulders in months. And then I called this subversive embodiment. People wouldn't even realize it. They just were drawn to do that. In one case, the piece also, you can be standing apart from someone, but two of your limbs become one and shared. And I heard people say, like, "Did you feel that when it happens?" And I'll just mention one time, it was in a science museum, and I was just kind of standing back watching, and two people that didn't know each other came from different sides, and they were doing it, and suddenly their arms were connected, and they became very uncomfortable, which I love. That was a learning experience for them. So in 2020, I founded a museum in Santa Barbara, a Museum of Sensory and Movement Experiences. It had some of my work. I curated work by other media artists. And yeah, again, I was hearing stories about what it did for people. In one case, there was a newly single dad who had his two girls, and they were looking for things to do, and it's pandemic. And then here in this museum, they could interact a lot without touching anything and being separate. And I later found out he was very grateful, and their family called it the COVID Museum, and so they would frequently come back for that experience. And then this was, as I mentioned, kind of the convergence into mental health. And recently, we published an article in Leonardo, which is from MIT Press. It's kind of the leading journal in interactive media arts. And we talked about this journey from large-scale museum gallery type art and how that became MindClay, essentially. Yes.
Thanks for sharing that story, Marco, about the COVID museum. It speaks to a lot about how the arts can, not only get us to think and, promote wellness, but also bring folks together, families together, even, in tough times. So thanks for sharing that story. So we're going to talk a little bit about why this conversation matters right now. And so what impact data have you seen from MindClay users on their individual health and perhaps community health as well?
Yeah, thanks for that. Uh, of course, there's a lot of anecdotal data, people telling me their experiences with it. And actually, it's been very rewarding. I talked to you about how the Taoist farmer was a new favorite of mine. And in at least my circles, I had people start saying occasionally, "Oh, I had this Taoist farmer moment yesterday." Um, but in terms of actual data, so we did a survey last year and it did show substantial reduction of anxiety and depression and stress after people use MindClay. And then recently we added a feature that before and after any activity, there's a mood slider. So you can self report your mood score. And so it's early days of getting the data, but I will say in the amount of data we've had so far, we're seeing over 25% increase in mood after just 6 minutes with MindClay. So we're excited about that. And yeah, we're going to continue to collect data to show it works. But really, every activity is grounded in um, evidence-based research from the last 20 years. And so, we know these techniques work and we're just applying them in this MindClay context.
Marco, when you first reached out to us is because we had our Arts and Health initiative, and we've been working on that since 2020. So probably around the time that you started MindClay, I think it was, or you said 3 years ago you started MindClay. So you may have been still with telehealth, better help, which, like you said, a lot of our constituents probably are familiar with. But we're curious to know about the work you're doing with therapists. So, how have therapists used MindClay to engage patients, maybe in between sessions as a recommendation? And I also call out on your website. I think right now it's available to people that have been sort of I don't want to use the word prescribed, but I'll put that in quotations.
Mhm.
Maybe you can explain that more, the process. But how have therapists been using this?
Right. Um, just in the last month, we released our therapist platform for MindClay, which is kind of an umbrella over all the activities. And so there's a long time challenge in the therapeutic world where therapists want their clients to be engaged with the kind of work they do during session, during those 7 days or longer between sessions. And they'll assign homeworks like here's some worksheets, or you should buy a journal and do gratitude journaling. And the adherence is really low, and some therapists are still try regardless, and some sort of give up on homework. And it can be called homework or it can be called suggested activities. So we've now created a layer for MindClay where, since these activities are fun and interesting and they're therapeutic, that the therapist can assign activities or suggest after their session, and really, in a way, customize those. Like, yeah, you should do this gratitude magnets activity and think about how what we talked about with your family supporting you these past few weeks. And so, yeah, the patients can then work with that, and it's not so much of a chore of doing homework, but it's something interesting that they can come back to. Um, and people tend to initially gravitate to certain modalities. This was interesting from the data. So, like, I happen to be a visual and a movement person, and other people will gravitate to writing that they're very comfortable with. So, users, patients can start with the modality they're comfortable with, but then, like, maybe get nudged over time to get outside their comfort zone. I'm a big believer in getting outside your comfort zone as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Having something to get you out of the comfort zone can be helpful. So that's a good tool to utilize. We want to touch on a little bit about self-care, community care, and specifically going into our BIPOC perspectives, thinking about with the usage of MindClay, and I'll let Jenica ask a question around that. But before we dive into that, we're curious to know, working in the arts isn't always easy, as we know. Society often can glorify the grind over our well-being. And from your experience as a CEO and entrepreneur, which I mean, CEO is a lot itself, entrepreneur is a lot because you're carrying the whole of a project or an organization in many ways, and a whole lot is on your back. How does MindClay support artists and arts leaders in actually remembering to practice self-care?
I had an interesting conversation with a friend who's an artist. That's a lot of my personal world. A couple months ago, and she's a MindClay user and advocate, which is great. And she said she will often go, like, she knows how powerful the arts are for mental health. I mean, I think we all do. But she'll still go for 6 months without doing a painting unless she happens to sign up for a class. And I think that's true of a lot of us, and it's true of me. And so, MindClay can really be there as a nudge and something easy to pull up on your phone and start to create something. And, maybe that's enough, and maybe that'll inspire you to take out some paper or whatever your modality is. We're big believers in digital to analog approach. So actually, like in the mandala activity, you can create your digital mandala, and then at the end, in the integration phase, it prompts you. Now, next time you go outside or as you're out and about this week, try to notice repeating patterns in nature or in architecture. And so to kind of get us thinking creatively, and maybe that will spark some other work that you might do in the analog realm.
Thanks for sharing, Marco. So to take this conversation further, so there's an additional layer for BIPOC artists and arts leaders, as you know. How do you think allies can better support our BIPOC friends, ensuring wellness is more culturally responsive and accessible?
Since day one of our mission for MindClay, equity and diversity has been a main goal, and it's especially important in mental health because there's a lot of stigma around mental health in the BIPOC community and various other populations. And there has been research that shows that creative arts therapies are a non-threatening portal into mental health to get people comfortable and involved in it. So overall, that's part of our mission, and what we're looking to do is to be that portal. And also in the talent we're bringing in the creative arts therapists we're using, we're definitely sensitive to and want to integrate that. So our dance movement therapist, our main one, Maria Luisa, is Puerto Rican, and some of her activities are around merengue or bachata. And then we were really happy last year to bring in John Boogs, who's an Emmy-winning street dancer, and we have now 3 therapeutic street dance activities that he leads, and like the wave and 2 other modalities. And he's a huge advocate for mental wellness, and he's actually creating a film that I've seen bits of that's quite beautiful, about African American men going into therapy, but they express themselves entirely through movement and without words. So yeah, that's a big part of our mission and our goals, and is very important to us.
Thanks for sharing all of that. So, we'll be talking now about personal practice and the human side of all of this. How do you personally practice wellness in your everyday life?
I have actually a six-part ritual. It took me a long time to figure out what works best for me, and it's going to be different for everyone. And that's it's both mental and physical wellness, and I try to get this done in the morning. And those are, as we know, totally tied together as well. One part of that is 5 4 3 2 1 ritual, which some of you may know that already, but basically, um, you stop and you notice five things you can see, and four things you can touch, and three things you can hear, and two things you can smell, and one thing you can taste. Um, I often do this on a walk outside, so I'm not going to taste things on my walk, but I massage those numbers a bit. So that's a really important one. And I do gratitude journaling. That's really helpful for a lot of people. And and I pull out MindClay when I need it. So those are parts of my personal rituals.
Great, thank you for that. All right. And has your relationship to rest or creativity changed as you've grown as a founder?
Yeah, being a CEO definitely adds stress to my life and everything around that, and running a company, a startup. But and it's interesting or ironic that I'm in the mental health space, so it's really important to prioritize that. And and then, as we know, as artists, really taking the time for creativity is intrinsically important. I remember that some years back, John Cleese from Monty Python got very involved in creating, I don't know if I'd call it wellness videos, but videos to help people in business and their personal life. And he was a big advocate of blocking 2 hours out of your week every week, like I'm gonna leave from work for these 2 hours, whatever it is, and you do something creative. And um, and I think that's a great suggestion. I don't know that I do that all the time. I need to do that more, but it's really about prioritizing oneself and one's mental health.
Marco, we work with, of course, a lot of artists and creatives across California, but even beyond. This video may be seen from people in various parts of the country or even outside of our country. And so, when thinking about artists and artists, a lot of times having to work multiple jobs, having inconsistent income sometimes, or may not even have benefits to receive the health care that they need, which is all things we advocate for at CA for the Arts. Thinking about that and how their lives can be up and down or have really intense, busy moments of life. What would be the average amount of time someone would spend on Mind Clay in a day? Maybe there's a range of time for your exercises or an average amount of time for the exercises on Mind Clay.
E- Each activity is 5 to 10 minutes long, and it actually says on the dashboard an estimate of how long it is: 5, 8, 10 minutes. We're That's important to us, that there are these kind of small moments of mindfulness. Some people will just do one if that's what they have time for. Some people might get on a roll and do several.
Mhm.
A story we like to tell is many of them can be done on the go. So you could be in line at the DMV, let's say, which is a very stressful situation for all of us, but you could pull it out and work on your mandala or your spinning sands piece or a haiku. And we separate them on the dashboard by first by modality: art, music, movement, and writing, but also on the go and at home. And so the at home activities are also 5 to 10 minutes, but they are music and movement based. So you want to at least have some space, and maybe that means between Netflix shows or something like that. And some of them, like Chelsea, the music therapist. She'll ask you to pick up an object. I'm just seeing. I got some vitamins here, and she'll have you work with her to shake them. So yes, so there are these small moments that you can fit in your day as works for your own schedule.
Yeah, that sounds good. It makes me think of for me, I play the guitar and I'm not a super good player, so I hesitate to say I play the guitar. But I'll like in the middle of the day pick up the guitar and just play for 5 minutes, and it's something therapeutic about that. So
Yeah.
that's good. All right, so we've been, like I said at the top, we've been working with MindClay for the past year now, thinking about arts and health, thinking about the future of policy in California, of course, but then wanting to get our community engaged with MindClay. And so we want to know, why was it important for you to offer MindClay to our members? And also, if you're watching this before our summit in April 2026, all summit attendees will have access to MindClay as well. Why was that important to you?
The connection to arts and health is really important, and not that many organizations understand that. Sometimes that's a big part of the education we need to do to a potential group. And you guys are based on the premise of the importance of arts and health, and we're all in California. So that was an obvious connection. And yeah, we want to do what we can to support the community, especially artists. Like, that's where I came from. And, I'll probably always call myself an artist first and maybe an entrepreneur second. And I hope that we can help other artists find these moments of mindfulness in their day.
Great. Thanks so much, Marco. So how can summit attendees gain access to this web app?
We'll provide a custom link that's just for the summit attendees, and that'll give them access for 1 year, and there's no credit card up front or anything like that. They can just click the link and register name and email, and they're in and can start using it.
Very cool. So looking ahead, what are the goals of MindClay? What do you have? I don't know. You don't have to say 5 to 10 years specifically, but what are some of your goals? Where would you like it to go?
On the product side, I'm really interested in exploring new methods of healing. What I mentioned with the Zen board, and how you kind of draw something that's active for you and then you get re-regulated. That we sort of found by accident, just like the psychologist who discovered EMDR. It was by accident. She was walking through a park depressed, and she started looking left and right and realized she felt better. So I think the Zen board, like, we accidentally found one of those, and I'm really hoping we're gonna find more of those, and that we'll have several with MindClay.
Great. Sounds exciting. What kind of impact do you ultimately hope MindClay has on the arts ecosystem?
I think we're bringing awareness, as you are, to the powerful support to mental health that the arts provides. We were at a big conference in San Diego a couple months ago called Behavioral Health Tech, and it had a lot of the mental health tech leaders across the country. And I think one of the things we did there, we had a wellness lounge, and we were kind of socializing that leadership into the importance of the arts in mental health. And some few percentage knew that already, and those were great conversations. And others, I think we had an impact by bringing that to the conversation.
All right. Now we're going to get into a little bit of a lightning round. Just kind of first thing that comes to mind when you hear some of these questions. And I'll preface it with the fact that our 2026 Arts and Culture Summit, our theme is Boundless Culture and Creativity, the Essence of Freedom. And it was developed as we as a team were thinking about our current freedoms, the challenges at the moment, the freedoms being challenged at the moment, and even there's a host of things. I won't give specific call outs, but what comes to mind when you think of boundless culture and creativity, the essence of freedom?
I think there's that's great, and there's a lot to unpack there. Um, I, we are in a challenging time right now, and that's the need for mental health is really wrapped around that in so many ways. And I think, as we all know, the need for creativity as a result is, even greater than before. And I'll bring up the Taoist farmer again. I think it's important to do whatever we can do right now, and at the same time, not be pulled too much into hopelessness, but see, perhaps 4 or 5 years from now, we'll look back and say, wow, that's what we needed to really like the world has changed. This is my hope.
Mhm.
It's going to change in the next few years, and we're going to look back and be, impressed by that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And I hope so. I'm very hopeful about that as well. Now next question I have for you is how do the way we framed it was, or phrased it was, how do we protect our freedoms? And at the moment, I feel like the question should be changed a little bit, especially since we're talking about mind clay. How do we protect our minds at moments like this?
I I think everyone should find their own ritual. It can take time. I told you I had 6 parts to mine, and I know if I miss one, I feel it. If for
Mhm.
some reason I'm busy and I don't do any of the 6, I mean, the first one is just stretching. That's an absolute. So we could protect our minds by understanding the mental health that each of us needs and prioritizing that. And we're going to bring a lot more to the world if, we're first protecting ourselves. I know the overused analogy is, from the airplane, give yourself the oxygen mask first and then help those around you.
Yeah, yeah. I got up this morning and went to the gym for that reason.
Yes, excellent.
All right. So our sub theme for for the summit and for Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month as a whole is joy, action, and power. You can see it on Jenica's background when she pops up on the screen. And so, what comes to mind when you think of joy?
The first thing that comes to mind is awe, AWE. There's actually some great research out of UC Berkeley, Dr. Keltner, about the power of awe for mental health. And and yeah, we actually started creating. We have one mind clay activity called Finding Awe, and it's about um, looking around you, going outside and seeing things that make you realize that the world is big, or finding like beautiful tiny details. So, so awe.
Yes. All right. What comes to mind when you think of action?
I'm a big believer in somatics. So when we do dance and movement, it's not just an analogy for action, but we're also embodying it. So I think it, starts here or in the gym, and then it translates into the world.
Yes. And last question in this lightning round, what comes to mind when you think of power?
Just like we were talking about, we're empowered when we take control of our own health, especially mental health, and not relying only on the health system interventions, but on the things we can give ourselves.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing all that, Marco. I would also add for power, inner power. This is all about mental health and wellness, and it kind of starts with us, right? So I think inner power also is fits in somewhere in there too. Um, so here's another question for you. Where can folks learn more about MindClay and connect with you?
So the website, you can actually just Google MindClay, or you can go to mindclayhealth.com, and We have a fairly long landing page. There's a lot you can learn just by reading through that. You can register, and yeah, I my email is mpinter@mindclayhealth.com, and so I invite everyone to learn more about it.
Thank you, Marco, for taking the time to meet with us. This has been an honor. It's been an honor to get to know you and work with you. As we stated earlier in the conversation, for everybody that's listening, MindClay will be available to all summit attendees. It's been available to all of our members. Thank you, Jennica, for working on that with Marco. We hope that those view this hopefully before April 20th are able to join us at the summit. And don't forget, the day after the summit is Arts Advocacy Day. It is a free event, a rally where we rally together and celebrate the arts at the Capitol, at Capitol Park in Sacramento. And we hope to see everyone there. Again, Marco, thank you. Jenica, thank you. It's an honor to
Thank
work
you.
with both of you.
Thanks, NeFesha. Thanks, Jennica.
Thank you.